The scene starts with someone screaming, asking what Jagger wants, and saying that if there's anything he can do, he will do it. But Jagger, determined, asks for his neck and slices it in two. As he watches the flames consuming the building, he takes out a cigar and throws it into the fire, then walks away. As Jagger runs through the forest, he thinks that he's getting tired and that they should send reinforcements once he finishes up here and reports it. He is introduced as Signature Jagger, and Jagger says he doesn't want to fight with something like that, but as he senses a dangerous attack approaching, he barely dodges it, and the tree beside him is sliced in two. The drooling orc locks his gaze on Jagger and charges down. Jagger wonders how this thing could be anything like a wild animal, thinking that the source of it must be that sickening cry or its uncontrollable movements. It must be one of those damn demonic swords. As the orc tries to slice Jagger, charging at him, Jagger counters by slashing it with his sword. As the orc again uses his striking, Jagger barely dodges the slash, noticing numerous trees being cut down. He thinks it's trying to show off, proving it's truly a demonic sword. The orc continues to attack, but Jagger dodges effortlessly, using the flying wood as footing to charge down at the orc and slash him. But Jagger realizes it was too shallow, as the orc is still regenerating. He thinks this isn't worth it at all and curses the old man, deciding he'll demand twice the pay when he returns. Jagger uses his special technique to parry Orc's attack, but his sword breaks in two. Jagger continues to fight as he uses his special slash to slay the Orc's head, splitting it in two. After taking a break, he thinks he's dying and his sword is done for. All that's left is to take care of things when he hears a voice inviting him to come closer. The sword promises to give him everything, the power to slay anything and fulfill any demand, so it beckons him to come to her. Jagger realizes he's walking on his own and can't stop. If he picks up the magic sword, he might end up like the orc, lying dead on the ground, unable to control his body as he's about to touch the sword. The sword tempts him to slay and resent everything, but when Jagger grabs the demonic sword, nothing happens. The sword screams, "What? What is happening?" and demands that he listen to her. But Jagger throws the sword into the depths of the sea as it sinks. Jagger thinks about the demonic sword and how the old man scolded him, demanding evidence and accusing Jagger of lying. Jagger thinks the old man didn't have to be so cheap. He can't even buy a sword with what he was given. Then he encounters a little girl, wondering if she's a lost child. As Jagger tries to leave, the girl grabs him, saying she's speechless and can't believe he would throw away his owner, questioning if he's in his right mind. Jagger, sweating, wonders what's with this kid, telling her she's got the wrong man and trying to leave. But the girl gets angry, shouting if he's going to act like he doesn't know her after fondling this queen's body and demanding to know what kind of nonsense he's up to. Jagger is shocked by this and teleports right in front of the girl as the crowd whispers, calling him a pervert. Jagger tries to reason with her, asking what exactly she's accusing him of, to which the girl retorts that it's what this queen wants to say. She demands to know how he dared throw her into the lake without any thought, and she can't believe he doesn't recognize her. Jagger asks if she's that entity, and the girl confirms, saying she is indeed the demonic sword he threw away. As the girl introduces herself as a demonic sword, she accuses him of lacking self-awareness as a servant. But then she notices Jagger has already disappeared. Jagger, now in an alley, thinks he barely managed to escape her and almost got his nose knocked off. Suddenly, the girl appears beside him, asking why he's excluding her. Jagger asks how she got there when it's a dead-end street, to which the girl explains it's because she's a demonic sword. She adds that wherever he is, she can go anytime she wants. She says that Jagger seems like he doesn't believe her, but the girl shrugs it off, saying it doesn't matter. Since he has this queen, he's now her servant. Jagger shivers at her words, questioning what she's been talking about. The girl insists that it's natural for him to become her servant the moment he takes her on. Jagger, trying to leave, dismisses her rant, telling her to go home and stop talking nonsense, The girl insists he's been ruled ever since they met, introducing herself as Minerva. She urges him to look at her true form, as Minerva sarcastically responds, telling him to kneel down and show respect to this so-called queen. But instead, Jagger grabs her hand and drags her to a building. Once inside, the man at the building asks why the guy who said he'd never come again is back. Jagger replies that he's here to deal with a demonic sword, shocking Minerva. The old man at the building gets nervous, asking where the demonic sword is. Jagger nonchalantly points to the girl. The old man, nearly about to get his nerve popped, asks if Jagger's serious. Before Jagger can explain, Minerva cuts in, calling Jagger brother, saying no matter how much trouble she is, he shouldn't try to sell her. Jagger protests that she doesn't have to act like that, but the old man, angered, shakes the whole building as he scolds Jagger. After a massive scolding, Jagger and Minerva leave, with Minerva questioning how dare he try to sell the queen. She says it's 3,000 years too early for that. Jagger, frustrated, asks why she's doing this. But Minerva reminds him that she's told him repeatedly that the moment he took hold of this queen, they were destined to be together until the end of their lives. Jagger mutters a curse in response. The scene shifts to a carriage, where Jagger, chewing on something, thinks he really didn't want to go to City, but now, because of her, he can no longer accept questions from the village cult. Trying to make conversation, Jagger asks her how she, as a demonic sword, can change into a person. Minerva ponders over it for a while to say that she's not entirely sure. She just can. She's curious and even wonders how they could escape control while holding on to this queen. Jagger says he doesn't know. He just wanted to. They move past this topic as the helper calls out that they've arrived. Jagger thanks him for the free ride. The helper asks if he's interested in an escort quest and suggests stopping by Rose's place. Minerva yanks Jagger, saying if he's going to hit his head on the ground, he should do the same to the queen. Jagger glares at her, calling her a nuisance, and leaves, telling her if she doesn't like it, she can go alone. Minerva runs after him as she screams at him. In Kai Province, largest city Epilim, where she marvels at how much humans have developed. As Jagger and Minerva continue bickering, Jagger notes that they've arrived. Minerva asks if he's going to sell the queen again, to which Jagger retorts that she must be crazy, asking what she's talking about. As Jagger nervously tries the open door, Minerva asks why he's so uncharacteristically nervous and what plan he has. When he finally opens the door, a receptionist confronts Jagger, who asks if they accept quests. The receptionist requests to check his identity first and asks for his identification card. When the receptionist realizes he's Signature Jagger, the nearby warriors are shocked to see the Warrior of Doom there. Minerva tries to suppress her laughter as Jagger asks for a list of quests. The receptionist warns him about the difficulty, but Jagger says it's fine, and she hands him a letter of introduction. The nearby people are gossiping that the Warrior of Doom assassinated the worst duke and is one of the 5 great warriors. Jagger thinks that's exactly why he didn't want to come to the city, while Minerva struggles to hold back laughter, and Jagger mutters a taunt about her being a lump of steel. Minerva says that it's disappointing to think that the quest he got was just this, and he has no courage, calling him a warrior doom, for which Jagger asks her not to call him that. As Minerva again calls him the Warrior of Doom, as 10 minutes before, a woman thanks Jagger for coming as she was worried that there was no news for a while after the quest was posted, for which Jagger asks if that is so. As the Marquis says, she can only trust it to him now, for which Jagger assures that he will find it no matter what. As Minerva finds a beautiful cat in a painting, saying that she has a cute cat, as Minerva got smacked out. As Jagger says, he can't understand how these nobles think, and to think that they would close down the whole garden just for a cat. As Minerva says, to think a warrior would be out looking for a cat, angering Jagger as he shouts at her, asking her to be quiet and saying that it's all because of her. As Minerva asks that, why is he putting the blame on her? For which Jagger screams that because he broke his sword, and how he's supposed to do the quest without a weapon. For which Minerva asks, "What does he mean? Doesn't he have a sword? Doesn't he have this queen? And to think it carefully, and if he wielded him without any conditions, wouldn't he be the strongest?" As Jagger thinks that truly if it's as she says, but as he flicks down Minerva, making her cry, saying that a child acting like that isn't effective. As Minerva is teared out, saying that calling him a candy addict and warrior of doom. As Jagger thinks that it is too quiet even for a closed-off park, and even the usual sound of birds chirping is gone. And as he questions that, did some demonic beast take over this place, as he doesn't even have a sword right now? As a mysterious monster sneakily attacks on Jagger as he barely blocks it out, as Jagger recognizes it as a saber-toothed tiger. Jagger was wondering why a quest to look for a cat was ranked, and to think they would call a saber-toothed tiger a cat. As Minerva asks, it seems like they are in a dangerous situation, for which Jagger drops her out. As Minerva scolds him, what is he doing now? For which Jagger asks her to go stand in the back and not to let her get hurt. As Minerva asks if that is the problem right now, as the thing is behind him, but as Jagger punches down the tiger. Minerva can't believe this, with just a twig that bulky body is getting hit upon. As Jagger, with his overpowered techniques, corners down the saber-toothed tiger as he looks down upon it. Jagger thinks that stranger, saber-toothed tiger is a smart creature, so it should concede after sensing the difference in the power, but to keep fighting even after knowing that should be because of something else. He thinks that, of course, it had babies. As Jagger gets close to the tiger, asking him to calm down, saying that he has no intention of harming him, and he came because the Lady Marquise was worried about him. As the tiger gets close to him, as Jagger says, he can tell why it's called a kitty cat, as he's quite heavy, as the tiger is licking down Jagger. The scene shifts into the Marquis's house, as she calls the saber-toothed tiger a troublemaker, as she made her worried. As the Marquis thanks Jagger for completing the quest, as to see that Jagger is getting beaten down by Minerva. As she thanks the warrior of doom, Jagger asks if she knew even though he's specifically traveling to the countryside to hide his name, for which Marquis says that is hard for nobles to forget such a name, but that aside, what is the relationship between the two of them, for which Jagger calls out, saying that she is a stranger, but Minerva says that Jagger's is her servant. As they bicker around with each other, Marquis comments that it seems to be a peculiar relationship, as Jagger asks, why did she name it Kitty Cat? For which Marquis says that when she first met this child, she really thought it was a cat, and even now it's still cute as a kitten to her, but the others probably don't see it that way. It probably ran away from the house because of that, and she was probably thinking that she did not belong here, so she would like to take this chance to tell him that she wants to send this child back to her original home. And Jagger asks that she is talking about the saber-toothed tiger's home, for which Marquis says that it's the place he is thinking, the area to the farthest east, Sigman, in Epilim, as all the nearby people are mesmerized by Jagger. Jagger says that it's quite distracting to have a saber-toothed tiger with them, as the crowd screams that they are so cute and want to take it home. Minerva comments that they are lowly humans, and they can't take their eyes off her beauty. Jagger says that she's lucky, to which Minerva asks what he means, and Jagger says that he wishes he could be like her, with no thoughts in her head, angering Minerva. Minerva annoyingly asks where they are going now and says they were going to Sigman or something. Jagger says that he has to stop by a place. Minerva asks where this place is, to which Jagger says that he's going to buy a sword and asks if that's okay. As Minerva holds down Jagger, Minerva groans, saying, "Is it the wind?" As the scene shifts into the shop, the keeper welcomes Jagger and the party to the best Epilim weapon branch, asking how he may help him. Jagger says that he would like to buy a sword, a high-quality one. The keeper thinks that no matter how he looks at it, Jagger doesn't seem capable of buying his famous sword. The keeper asks, why doesn't Jagger take a look around the store as their supplies are excellent, to which Jagger says that he will take a look, as he will have to decide whether to buy it or not. As they move out to see it, Minerva comments that the guy is really strange, no matter how good humans' swords are, to which Jagger says she is still better as he pats her. The keeper directs them to a place, saying the luxury department is here. He asks if the sword Jagger is looking for is for hunting monsters on the non-standard grade and says this sword will be perfect. Jagger asks what the name of it is, and the keeper says the name of the sword is the Red Dragon. Jagger says that if it's the Red Dragon, it's the sword of the legendary hero Aaron's Gunfield, who killed dozens of dragons alone. The red color of the sword blade, made of the spine of the Red Dragon, and the graceful curve are its characteristics. As the keeper is shining from its beauty, Jagger asks how much the sword costs and thinks that indeed it is the largest weapon shop on the continent. The keeper says the price is 10 million out, and Jagger asks to excuse him, thinking it was a joke. The keeper then introduces the white sword sniper, made by the master blacksmith Naren, and continues to ramble. As they continue to move on, Jagger asks what it is, to which the keeper says that he saw it, didn't he? It's a new item recently received, a sword discovered by Sir Carol, one of the 5 warriors. It's not on display yet, and the name and price are not decided. As Jagger tries to hold it, the keeper asks him not to touch the merchandise, but seeing the penetrating gaze of Jagger, he relents. Jagger holds it out as the sword resonates with him. Jagger says that he will buy this sword. In the slums, Minerva says she doesn't like it and wonders why she has to sleep in this place. Jagger says that he spent all his money buying this thing, and if she doesn't like it, she can go outside and sleep, as he's sleeping just fine. Minerva scolds him, saying it's bad enough that he cheated on her with another sword, but he's also going to put her in a shabby place. Jagger says he wants to sleep, as Minerva shouts at him, calling him a disloyal warrior. Jagger tells her to be quiet, as this is the slum, at night, as they are snoring off. Jagger hears a cry and wakes up, moving out. He moves out to see a white-haired girl. Jagger says he doesn't know what's going on, but tells her that crying won't solve her problem. As the girl moves around, Jagger tries to recognize her, and she asks Jagger if he is not going to die. The girl says that everyone she has been with has died. Even the kind ones, even the brave ones. She didn't want to be with anyone anymore, but Jagger asks if she could be the one. The girl introduces herself as Zoe and says she is the cursed sword that is bound to him. Jagger asks the sword he bought at Ephelam is her, and the people who wielded them all commit suicide. As the girl says that yes, Jagger sighs out as the girl gets emotional, apologizing to him, saying that she resolved herself to never be contracted again, but she was urged by an unknown power. As Jagger pats her, saying that he's not sure how he was contracted to her, but he will promise her one thing for sure, as he will definitely not die because of her. As Sui recalls of an unknown girl who is crying out, saying that she will one day meet that person as well, a partner that she will want to spend the rest of her life with. As Sui asks for his name, as Jagger introduces himself as Signature Jagger. As from behind, Minerva comes in saying that she came because the room suddenly turned cold and there's someone she hasn't seen before. As the girl introduces herself as Zoe, Zoe asks what she is doing, as Minerva teases her, saying that she has heard down everything from downstairs and she's a demonic sword, as she says that she will show her the prize for attempting to steal someone's servant. As Jagger grabs her head, calling her a punk, Minerva gets angry, saying that he's a problem too, as he already has a demonic sword. As Jagger asks her to be calmed down and listen to her, since she is the Unni, and she has to act respectful. As Zoe to take care of her, calling her Minerva Unni, as Minerva giggles down to ask Sui to call her that again. The next day, as Jagger asks, that shall they get going now, as Minerva screams that, where are they heading off to again? as Jagger wields down Sui, saying that he will be going to buy a sword, as Jagger smacks the door on the keeper. As the keeper asks that what is the meaning of this, for which Jagger asks to forget that and bring out that owner, for which the keeper says that he must be crazy, and he must not know where this is, as he asks his guard to educate him a bit, as the guy asks Jagger to get lost when he's speaking nice, but Jagger throbs him with his fist, saying that he must not understand human language and he wants the store owner, and not some security sensing that. As Jagger points his sword at the keeper, saying that he is not going to call them, as the keeper screams, to question that if he thinks that he will get away with this, and does he know who he is. As from behind an old man screams to Jagger to stop him, as the keeper calls him father. As the keeper says that it's nothing and please go ahead, for which old man says to keep quiet as the issue looks to be with this person. As Jagger asks that is he the owner of this store, for which the old man abides by saying that before that does he mind giving him a reason for doing this, as he will have to pay the price if he is not satisfied with the reason. As Jagger says, the reason is simple. His name is Signature Jagger, and he has a moniker called the Warrior of Doom. As he unearths his sword to penetrate it into the ground, he says that would this reason be enough if Weapons Best, the world's best weapon shop, sold a demonic sword to a warrior, and this place would have been a land of disaster if he couldn't withstand the demonic sword, and then what would have happened to Weapons Best, who sold him the demonic sword? As the keeper tries to say, that is a lie, and Warrior Carr vouched for it himself, for which Jagger says that of course he didn't want to make a big dollar off it either, but he will be taking in compensation. As Jagger anxiously unsheathes his sword, saying that he will be taking an arm as he slashes through, but as his father comes in between to stop it. As he cries out, saying that it's his fault. It's the fault of a father who didn't raise their children well, so he pleads to take his hand instead of as compensation. As Jagger says, that is a tear-jerking father love, and how about this then, as he proposes a plan? The keeper pleads with his father that he just wanted to help a little, for which the old man calls him a useless betted. As the keeper gets angry, cursing out Signature Jagger, Sui asks Jagger, does he really plan on taking that person's arm? For which Jagger says that he is not some crazy person and what he's going to do with someone's arm then. As Sui asks, then since the beginning he was aiming for the sword, isn't it? For which Jagger says the 2 for 1, and he was giving a lesson for his nasty personality as well. As Sui asks why did he go so far? For which Jagger that it's his life's motto, gratitude 2-folds, resentment 10-folds. As Minerva drooling, asking when Jagger is coming back. At the Rose Cathedral, Minerva says that he is always frowning as Jagger is quite attached to the sword, saying that if someone sees him, they might think he has met his soulmate, for which Jagger says that is a normal sword unlike someone. As Minerva warns him, saying that he never knows it could be another demonic sword, for which Jagger says that her jealousy is unbecoming, there was nothing wrong with it for 500 years. As Sui calls Jagger, saying that he is big mean, and he has only been paying attention to that child since a while ago. As Jagger tries to convince her, saying that it's not it, and it was because he was just making sure it was a normal sword, Sui asks him not to make excuses. As Jagger thinks that his feelings are like a déjà vu, Sui asks that he was fondling him so passionately as the surrounding people hear this and think again of Jagger as a pervert. Jagger asks that he will scold her if she doesn't stop right here, for which Sui answers that it's Jagger's fault this time. As Jagger grabs her head, saying that it was his fault, and asks for forgiveness, for which Sui says that only this time. From behind, a person calls Jagger, saying it's nice meeting him as he is Mark Blentier and they will be working together on this trade escort quest, and it's an honor to work with the Warrior of Doom, for which Jagger shakes his hand, thinking that the trade company must have leaked it. As Mark says that the party of the Warrior is peculiar as he greets Minerva, saying that they will be together for a while, for which Minerva asks not to strike up a conversation with her, calling him a lonely person, but to see his bald head, she gets excited. The scene shifts into the carriage. As Minerva asks, "That is boring. Isn't the human world too peaceful?" Jagger says that not really, just difference. It shows a difference between how humans and demons fight. But as he asks, how dare she do that as Minerva is playing hair with Mark? Jagger glares at her, saying that to get over here, as Minerva asks Baldy to protect her as Jagger shouts at her to get here, as Minerva screams that she's getting doomed by a warrior as a huge ruckus takes place. At night, Jagger apologizes as they have bothered, for which Mark says that it's all right as he's used to it, as he blabbers on the compliment of Minerva as Mark says, "That isn't it better for her to be like that as it's..." As Mark says that he will find out later that, aside, he asks, "Isn't it fate meeting up like this?" as he takes out a drink saying, "How about a glass?" for which Jagger recognizes that it's the honey alcohol that's only sold in the Carbon Holy Kingdom. For which Mark says that it's said that as long as one has this alcohol, they will survive, even if they get captured by the dragon, for which Jagger says that it's there, but he's okay without it. But as Mark shoves the glass towards Jagger, Jagger takes it. As Jagger asks if there is something else, for which Mark says that they need a side dish, Jagger's story should be enough. As Jagger says in his story, he reveals that he lost his father and started on his path to being a warrior in the year that he turned 15. There were people that took him in without any questions, but later he found out that they were the hunting dogs who would capture and sell the descendants of warriors to Duke Parthenon. As Mark asks, how did he survive from that kind of situation, for which Jagger is about to say, but Minerva comes in asking, what kind of exciting talk are they having that he won't even look this way? She asks, "What's that?" as the smell is quite nice, for which Jagger asks, "Does she want to try?" For which Minerva agrees, asking that he would give it to her. As she asks, is he serious? And he is finally taking on the role of a servant, as she takes a sip, saying that it's already the queen's drink, as Mark tries to warn her, saying that is something that adults drink. Jagger answers that Mark had asked how he survived back then. Thankfully, that day a missionary came and saved him, and he learned something from him first. To pay gratitude twofold, resentment tenfold, and second, for people that come to him smiling. Minerva is feeling quite dizzy as she is about to fall off as she cries that he tricked him again. Jagger says not to trust them, and doesn't he agree, calling him Mr. Mark? As Mark unsheathes his sword to attack Jagger, he blocks it. Mark asks that when did he notice, for which Jagger smiles out, saying that is that even a question as he parries it to deflect the sword. As Mark orders his lackeys to get Jagger, Jagger reveals that he knew from the beginning. As the attacks shove down at Jagger, he deflects them easily as the other one tries to strike him up, but Jagger parries it back. From behind, Sui comes in as she asks that what's this for, and Jagger asks her to take Minerva and get out of there. Sui tries to convince Jagger to use her by saying that it's dangerous, so for which Jagger says that it's fine as he will be over soon. As one of the lackeys, calling him an insolent Brad, asking what he means by so over, for which Jagger, glaring at him, says that it doesn't seem like a wrong thing to say. Besides, isn't it against the rules to ask who hired him? As he tries to slice him, saying that he doesn't know but it really doesn't matter, as the other assassins try to attack Jagger, but Jagger blocks it away. As from above, Mark jumps in to strike a meteor strike as Jagger. As a huge blow takes place and Jagger barely blocks it, Jagger thinks that what a mindless brute attack it is, and his vision is not good, but as Jagger flees from the ongoing attacks, Mark asks that it was good that he doubted them from the beginning. But if this is all, he is disappointed in the Warrior of Doom. As Jagger throws out the strike to use his Jagger vision, he tries to dodge the assassins using the flying snake greedy frog technique to deflect from the assassin's attack and to envelop them in fire. As he uses his technique to parry with the other assassin, to question if he hides his skills, and he's not just a warrior in name as, Mark warns him that he will have to pay for his prank as he uses his attack, and Jagger takes a step behind to use his Jagger vision as Jagger uses his explosive step to counter the incoming strike, as a huge blast takes place. But from the smoke, Jagger comes penetrating through the attack, as Mark notices that he used his own arm as a shield as Jagger slices down the assassin and apprehends Mark, saying that he has to end this now. As Mark tries to convince him, saying that it was Kevin Argaran of Weapon Best who did it, Jagger says that he knows that as soon as they left Eplum, they hired an assassin right away. And there's only one place that would have that much hatred recently, and he should have hidden his existence from the beginning, for which Mark tries to deny it, but Jagger kills him off. As from behind, Zoe comes in asking if he's okay, for which Jagger says that it's over. Zoe asks, is that a problem? And why didn't he use her? Is it because he's a demonic sword and he does not trust her? For which Jagger asks that she hoped no one died because of her, as he asks her not to worry as he falls down from exhaustion. As Jagger opens his eyes in a room, noticing that he has been moved away and has been treated, he thinks that who moved him and he is healed. As from beside him a person calls and says that he still moves his body recklessly as the person greets him, saying that it's been a long time as it's the kingdom of Emilia, second Prince Pius Emilia. 5 years ago, in the new Temion, royal castle, as the first prince of Emilia, Todris Emilia shouts that the Duke of Parthenon has been murdered and orders the immediate execution of the suspected killer. Signature Jagger. Pius tries to argue that he is not a murderer but a warrior, claiming that Arson Parthenon has been committing all sorts of crimes and training in illegal acts for many years. He believes that the one who initiated the bloodline of warriors made the wicked pay for their sins, and that they should thank him instead. The other officials object, saying it is not right to accuse the Duke of Parthenon, who is the highest astrocrate of Emilia. They wonder how someone could just kill him like that. Pius responds that they all know what he's talking about, and that they should have considered who would be blamed for Parthenon's evil deeds, asking, "Isn't that right, brother?" Todris, angry, calls Pius a bit of a concubine and claims he has no idea what he's talking about. Pius then mentions the pseudonym he gave to Signature Jagger as a warrior, shifting the conversation to the present as Jagger asks where they are. Pius explains that he had something to ask and that they are on the border of Emilia. As they talk, a guard enters the room and Pius mentions that he found him while they were treating him and brought the 2 ladies who were with him. Pius adds that the 2 ladies are rather lively, and Jagger is doing a good job taking care of them. Jagger sarcastically remarks that it's all thanks to someone who forcefully gave him a title like one of the 5 great warriors, which led to him living in a rural village to avoid those who constantly challenged him. He feels more comfortable with the people he's currently with. Roaches asks Jagger to speak respectfully to the prince, but before the Roaches can draw his sword in anger, the prince tells him that it's enough. Pius asks Jagger if he agrees that he should uphold his duties, mentioning that to pay gratefulness twice and resentment 10-fold. He then says that Jagger should consider himself indebted to him, to which Jagger responds by asking Pius to just say what he wants. Pius reveals that he wants Jagger to take on a quest for him. Recently, Pius's supporters have been assassinated, which has become a frequent occurrence. Pius adds that what's strange is that the same thing has been happening to people on his brother's side. Jagger asks if Pius wants him to catch the culprit. Pius says it's fine, whatever happens, but the most important thing is that the power holders of the country fear him. A corrupt power holder is punished by the Punisher, and Pius believes Jagger is not just a warrior, but a symbol, Signature Jagger. Pius says that if he introduces Jagger from his side, he can attract many supporters. He gives Jagger a month to solve the murder case and leaves, asking him to come to the holy city of New Teman as his quest. Jagger sighs, thinking that things have become troublesome. From behind, Minerva asks if the story ended well, and Jagger tries to make an excuse, Minerva sternly says it's time to talk about his side of the story, accusing him of using her as bait and warning that she will punish him. Jagger tries to explain that no one was hurt, but Minerva gives him a small punch, saying that's not the point, and that if he is their servant, he shouldn't get hurt without her permission. Jagger asks if she missed him a lot, which angers Minerva, leading her to say she can't stand it anymore, and it's time for his punishment as she tries to bite him. Just then, Zoe enters, agreeing with Minerva and saying she doesn't want anyone to get hurt or killed because of her. However, she would rather not see Jagger get hurt, so she asks him to promise that if the same situation arises in the future, he will use her instead. Jagger promises to do so. The scene shifts to a carriage, where Roaches apologizes to the prince for being rude, but questions if he is too weak to be one of the 5 great warriors. P.S. explains that the Punisher was meant to be a political device, but he survives safely even after killing the highest duke of the state of power. Perhaps he didn't use him for power, but for revenge from the beginning, as he received a letter that the Duke of Parthenon would die that day and was told to contact his enemy nobles. P.S. then asks if Roaches can achieve his goals at the risk of his life, like he did. P.S. says he's looking forward to the coming month. In the capital, New Temion, in the Amelia Kingdom, Minerva is impressed by the fortifications, remarking that they are quite impressive for humans. The level of defense never fell, even when the Demon King or dragons rampaged. Jagger notes that it has never fallen, and that no artifacts or books have been lost, making it unique. He then asks Minerva to stop acting like a pumpkin and hurry up as they move through the streets. Sui comments on how crowded it is, saying she feels like she might get lost, to which Minerva agrees, joking that it would be okay to get rid of half the people. She considers calling on the saber-toothed dragon, but Jagger stops her, telling her to tone it down. They comply, and a shopkeeper nearby calls out, claiming that if they run fast, they can catch anything, while advertising some speedy shoes. Minerva asks Jagger to get her that treasure, but Jagger refuses. She continues to ask for other things, and Jagger realizes it's a scam. Minerva sulks, while Sui is staring towards something as Jagger approaches her to ask if she wants to have something. Hesitant at first, Sui finally asks, and the shopkeeper says it's pretty and suits his sister well, offering a cheap price. Jagger buys it and gives it to Sui, who gets embarrassed. He also gives another to Minerva, who asks if he's giving it to her because she likes it. Jagger asks if she does like it, to which Minerva responds that it's not that, and as she wears it, she claims that this treasure will save him one day. Jagger thinks to himself that New Temion is a treasure trove of history with nothing lost. He wonders if there's a way to break the contract with the demon sword, and both Minerva and Sui ask if they look like sisters while doing this. Jagger ponders if he can find a way to break it, perhaps by cutting it with a knife. The scene shifts to P.S. greeting the ladies. Minerva asks if the human prince is uninterested, and Jagger says that he came here but asks what he needs to do. P.S. replies that there's nothing much, just the role of a royal investigator. Jagger says he doesn't have much skill, to which P.S. responds that he knows and that he's just borrowing his name. P.S. wants to start the operation right away, but says Jagger's appearance is a bit weak, so he needs to be dressed up as the Terror of Amelia, the Warrior of Doom. As Minerva says, he's looking forward to it, and P.S. comments that this lady has good instincts as he calls for Jagger to transform into the Warrior of Doom. The scene shifts to the party. King Winston of Amelia Kingdom asks Todris if P.S. is still here. Todris confirms, saying that although P.S. is a prince, he has no manners. King Winston then asks Todrius how desperate he must be to belittle his brother, even if he's an enemy, as Todrius took away all the foundations he built. Todris tries to make an excuse, saying that if it wasn't for him. The king realizes if the eldest son is putting his pride ahead of his ability, and the eldest daughter is leaving the palace because she is addicted only to pleasure, then maybe things would be different. As the second prince of the great Emilia kingdom, Prince Pius Emilia, is announced, Tadris screams, "How dare he arrive later than his father? Is he out of his mind?" Pius tries to apologize, saying he was late because he brought a guest. He then introduces the guest as the one who executed the wicked Duke Parthenon in the past. The people around them are shocked as Pius introduces the Warrior of Doom, Signature Jagger. Tadris orders the guards to arrest the noble murderer immediately. As the guards surround Jagger, Jagger tells them to stand down, saying it was a righteous act to eliminate Duke Parthenon. He unsheathes his sword, declaring that he has no shame for such an act, and fills the whole castle with his aura. Jagger dashes towards a guard, grabbing him by his neck, and introduces himself as Signature Jagger, greeting the son of the Emilia Kingdom, Winston Emilia. King Winston smiles, saying it was no coincidence that Jagger assassinated Parthenon alone. He orders everyone to step down, acknowledging the rumors that the Duke of Parthenon, who supported the first prince, had power comparable to the king. The king then states that Jagger took the life of a corrupt noble who tarnished the prestige of the country and that his will is no different from his own. However, the fact remains that the peak of this country has always been won from the beginning, as the king asks for the banquet to resume. At the grand ball in New Temion, held every 2 months, everyone appears to be smiling and enjoying themselves on the surface. However, what Jagger sees with his own eyes is a silent battlefield, where nobles are constantly vying for power. From behind, Pius approaches, congratulating Jagger on his successful debut in the social circles. However, Jagger is unsure about the kind of treatment he's receiving in this country and expresses his confusion, wondering if this is the norm. Pius explains that the attention Jagger is receiving is because of rumors about him condemning corrupt officials or calming a crying child. Jagger, skeptical, comments that he can probably guess who spread those false rumors. Pius shrugs and says that regardless of the source, the rumors mean that Jagger's achievements were impressive. For years, this area had been quiet, but now things are starting to change. Pius suggests that this is just the beginning and advises Jagger to adopt a more impactful appearance, as it might attract even more attention from those seeking alliances. Jagger reflects on how it seems that no one here cares who dies, lost in the brutal pursuit of power. Just then, a young girl approaches, looking scared. Jagger reassures her, telling her not to worry and that he won't hurt her. The girl brightens up and tells her friends that everything is okay. Soon, a group of children gather around, cheering for Jagger and calling him the true warrior of doom. From behind, Minerva arrives, commenting sarcastically that all this attention is burdensome for a servant of hers. One of the children asks if she's serious, and Minerva confirms, saying that Jagger knows better than any servant of hers. The child, curious, asks if a small mistake could result in losing their head. Minerva replies, half-jokingly, that even a slight mistake could lead to a sleepless night. The children, understanding her playful tone, start screaming and running around, pretending to flee. Jagger watches them, thinking to himself that the kids just don't fully understand the gravity of their words. Feeling overwhelmed, Jagger steps onto a balcony to get some fresh air. He reflects on how rough everything feels and how he's caught in a world where power and politics rule. From behind, a voice interrupts his thoughts. A girl asks if he finds dealing with these nobles tougher than facing monsters. She introduces herself as Princess Lorelei Emilia of the Emilia Kingdom. Jagger greets her formally, introducing himself as Signature Jagger. Princess Lorelei laughs, telling him there's no need to be so formal. She moves closer, revealing that she's frustrated with the world they live in. She points out how the moon has risen so beautifully, yet people are caught up in such boring matters. Jagger, slightly intrigued, asks her what she means. Lorelei, her voice laced with a mixture of boredom and challenge, suggests that perhaps he should try condemning her tonight, as it might be more entertaining. Jagger responds, noting that there's a rumor about the princess, earning her the notorious nickname Emilia's Tangneo. Despite the rumor, he finds her eyes too cold for seduction. Lorelei seems unfazed, playfully accusing him of making her heart ache. She then mentions that, in the end, he too is here for power, just like everyone else. Jagger acknowledges that it seems the princess doesn't like this place much. Lorelei agrees and wonders aloud how a woman with no strength or foundation could inherit anything here. Jagger, sensing her frustration, suggests that if she doesn't like it, she should either leave or struggle until the end. Princess Lorelei contemplates his words, admitting that leaving might be one option, but struggling could also be worthwhile. She smiles, saying that it was enjoyable talking to him, and hints that she looks forward to their next conversation, possibly in a more intimate setting. As she leaves, Jagger is left wondering if the rumors about her are true. The scene shifts to Jagger clobbering Minerva, who screams in pain. He scolds her, reminding her not to act out, as words and actions don't always align. From behind, Sue watches, worried that Jagger might be involved with another woman. She nervously asks him why he's acting suspiciously again, but Jagger dismisses her concerns, insisting that there's nothing to worry about. Just then, Pius excused himself for interrupting. He mentions that he's been enjoying himself and asks Jagger if he happens to know about Albert Frederick. Jagger, recognizing the name, confirms that he knows about the Steel Knight Albert Frederick, one of the 5 great warriors. These warriors are renowned across the continent for their exceptional strength, and the title is only bestowed upon those who achieve greatness at a young age. Pius then reveals that Frederick has issued a challenge to duel Jagger, causing Jagger to panic. He immediately tries to flee, fearing for his life. Pius, however, stops him and asks him to wait, suggesting that Frederick might have something else in mind apart from the duel. Pius asks if Jagger knows a man named Sigman Frederick, but before Jagger can answer, Minerva, clearly anxious, asks if they should be running away instead. The scene shifts back to the past, where a group of people is gathered. One person complains that he can't stand brawls. They are loud and obnoxious bullies, while another chimes in, agreeing that no one would like them. They're just weaklings who waste food. Among them, a girl expresses her affection for children, especially those from good warrior families. She points out that kids like Signature Jagger, who has been apprehended, have a high price on their heads. With a wry smile, she notes that the Jaggers have short lifespans, making them even more valuable. One of the men thanks Jagger for being born, lightly grazing his hand against Jagger's shoulder. But before he can continue, Jagger responds by headbutting him, causing the man to stagger back. Seizing the moment, Jagger attempts to run away, but another person trips him, reminding him that he is from the Jagger bloodline, and he should not forget that he was caught while pretending to be a monster. This man's fury boils over as he threatens Jagger, warning him never to let his guard down, claiming he could kill them all. Jagger retorts to warn him that he will definitely kill him someday, but the man kicks him down, scoffing at Jagger's threats. He taunts that he is acting all tough just because they treated him well, emphasizing that a powerless brat like Jagger can do nothing but glare. He punches Jagger down again, ridiculing him. A man says that he can do better than any demon. Suddenly, a knight swoops in from above, tackling the kidnapper. The kidnapper asks for his identity, and the man responds, calling himself Sigmund, and he has been hunting the guys for days, and it was so exhausting for him. Sigmund, acknowledging that chasing these thugs must be hard work, he casually requests that they hand over the child, offering to kill him for them instead. The kidnappers, visibly shaken, throw an axe at him, to which Sigmund responds with a smirk, commenting that their reactions are amusing. The kidnapper warns that he is relaxing in front of hunting dogs, and he must be foolish, Sigmund retorts, confirming his intentions as he extinguishes a nearby fire, blocking their vision. The kidnapper orders the girl to cast a spell, calling Sigmund a coward. but Sigmund swiftly counters, slashing the kidnapper's neck, demonstrating his skill and confidence. The girl, feeling threatened, begins to illuminate the area around them, calling for Jerry. Sigmund remarks that for a hunting dog, the kidnapper is pretty lame. The other kidnapper attempts to strike Sigmund, but he easily deflects the attack, his focus sharpening as he realizes he can't afford to take it easy anymore. In a flurry of movement, Sigmund then plunges a toothpick into the kidnapper's forehead as he punches him to send him flying. As Sigmund prepares for the final blow, the girl, sensing danger, starts casting a massive spell aimed at him. She strikes at him. As the smoke comes out, she wonders if he is dead. But Sigmund emerges unscathed, commenting that it was a close call and well executed, having buried Benjamin, another attacker. Panicked, the girl tries to escape, taking Jagger as a hostage. She shouts for him to stay back, threatening to kill Jagger if he moves. He orders him to drop his sword and kneel down. Reluctantly, Sigmund complies, attempting to throw his sword away. However, he cleverly kicks it, aiming it straight toward the girl's head. Sigmund asks Jagger if he has found a way to survive who, still shaken, Jagger replies that he has seen worse. Sigmund acknowledges Jagger's toughness and introduces himself as Sigmund, a mercenary. Jagger introduces himself in turn, saying that he is Signature Jagger, grateful for Sigmund's timely rescue. Sigmund responds with a smile, saying it's okay, and he can repay me twofold later. He assures Jagger that his motto is to repay kindness tenfold and resentment tenfold. Only a year later, Sigmund says that he didn't expect it to be this good, but now Jagger can truly call himself a chef, which embarrasses him. Sigmund thinks that it is not a big deal since that sharp's momentum has decreased. Sigmund thinks that it feels like his age. Well, it's a good thing. As Jagger asks if he is eating candy again and if his teeth are going to wear out, Sigmund says that he's in the middle of quitting smoking phase and asks him to support him. Jagger scolds Sigmund, saying that it's not good to eat too much sweet stuff, to which Sigmund replies that they say he is really a peculiar guy, and kids keep their distance from sweets. Jagger replies that he's not a kid. The scene shifts to an inn as Sigmund is happy, saying that this is it, drinking alcohol, and asks if Jagger would like to try it again. Jagger asks what it is, to which Sigmund responds that it is a restaurant. Sigmund asks him to stop eating with a knife. As Jagger handles the cooking and he will handle the visuals, how about him? Jagger says that it's not the skill level needed. Sigmund says that he is too medicated. Isn't that a problem? A man should be a bit more assertive. As he reads down the paper, he comments that it's crazy. Jagger asks why he is like this, to which Sigmund says that the Cadrigo family has been destroyed. It was one of the warrior families. The Cadrigo family is where he untrusted a missing person case to Sig. The family discovered Parthenon, and they planned to report it to the kingdom, but it is said that they were falsely accused and perished instead. As Sigmund asks Jagger to pack his things right away, he mentions that the guys from Parthenon probably smelled it, and if they stay here, they might end up dead without anyone knowing. In the middle of the night, they are running. Sigmund says that he doesn't like it, but there is no choice but to go back. Jagger asks where they are going, to which Sigmund replies that it is to the safest place on the continent. Suddenly, a slash comes in from behind, and Sigmund deflects it, saying that they have already been caught. The hunting dogs of Parthenon are here. Sigmund tells Jagger not to get too worked up. It doesn't matter as he will clear the way, so stick close while he confronts the assassins. As one assassin comes to attack Sigmund from behind, Jagger deflects it. Another tries to attack Sigmund from above, but he blocks it away. Sigmund says it's class time and tells Jagger to pay attention. He announces that when facing a group, he should use the terrain to his advantage as he deals with the two assassins. He asks the other two if they are going to fight and if they are scared that a knife is being brandished. He says that with that level of guts, they are really just hunting dogs. as he throws dust in their faces and tells them that a coward who freezes to death is indeed a coward. He then deals with the other one, saying that is this all there is to it. Back in the present, Albert Frederick, the Steel Knight of the Five Realms, asks where that kid is now. Jagger informs him that he died, which makes Albert angry. He crushes the seat off, saying that his child's name is Sigmund Frederick, and he is his only son. He had tried to return to his family to gather the strength to stand against Parthenon. Then he asks the Warrior of Doom why his son died, and if he has no intention of responding. Jagger apologizes, saying that he will show him the life of Sig, who was with him. Albert gets angry, saying that, however, there are some conditions. He hopes there is no trade involving his son's life as a bargain. The scene shifts in a battle arena filled with loud noises and cheers from the people. People in the crowd are gossiping and praising Sir Albert by saying that no matter how much others try, they are no match for him, while others were asking for the Warrior of Doom, while other people are shown betting their bar tab on Sir Albert. The scene shifts towards the stage where the higher authority executives are present. The first prince, Todris, asks his younger brother why he seems so relaxed, to which the Pias answered nonchalantly that there is no reason to frown on such a nice day as today. Todris gets pissed and curses him. Suddenly, a voice asks everyone to quiet down as the king had entered the arena, and everyone bows down in respect and welcomes the king. The king, once seated, checks around the stage to look for someone and comments that Princess L'Oreal wasn't present today either, to which the prince suggests that it had been long since they have appeared in public and asks permission and if he should call her. The king rejects his suggestion and announces that there is something more important. The scene shifts towards the announcement in the arena, announcing that Amelia is the country's pride. The names of the two opponents as the Knight of Steel, Sir Albert Frederick, and the one who gets the most backlash because of what he did to Duke's signature Jagger. They are asked to enter. The arena erupts in chaos and confusion, and people start gossiping about what happened when Albert walks forward towards the stage. Sir Albert takes his helmet off and bows before the king. The king asks Albert what happened, to which he responds that he is Albert Frederick, and he has something to tell him. The king asks him to say it, and Albert states that it's a shame that he fought his junior, and in order to justify an unfair duel, he should be given a penalty. The king questions the penalty, to which Albert further adds that if Jagger's sword reaches him, he will accept it as victory and pledge to do any favor, and he wants the king to be the witness. But Prince Todris gets angry at this and lashes back at Albert, asking what nonsense he is talking about, to which the king calls him out angrily, saying that he is not the one talking to Sir Albert. Todris apologizes, and the king grants Albert's wish, thus Albert thanks him. Then Albert asks Jagger if he is satisfied with the wish, to which he responds that he is satisfied, and then Albert asks him to stop talking and fight with all his might. Then the atmosphere gets tense as both opponents take their positions and weapons and get ready to fight. Before the fight, MC asked Sway to lend him power if she can, or if it's too much for her, to which she abruptly agrees to grant him the power and asks him to feel free to use her powers. Jagger thanks her, making Minerva jealous. In the present, suddenly the whole arena becomes tense, and the atmosphere changes to an eerie one. Both opponents unleash their weapons and powers. Jagger takes the lead and strikes the ground to freeze the path. He runs up to Albert, lashing out a huge blow on him which Albert dodges, and then Albert starts to attack Jagger too. The fight intensifies as they land blows and attacks on each other, both dodging and striking one another with more and more powerful blows. Then Albert, with his strong slash of a sword, sends Jagger flying back in the air onto the ground, hurt, and declares that it is over. The scene continues after Jagger is thrown to the ground by Albert, and Jagger coughs blood, on which Minerva calls him pathetic. Minerva asks Jagger that it's still not late for him to accept her body. She further adds that if he desires, she will cut through a god for him, on which Jagger brushes it off, stating that he was just looking around there, and it's real from now on, to which his Minerva gets shocked him screaming him the bad guy, and whispers her body can also be a source of strength. Just then, Albert calls to Jagger, saying that it is enough at this point, on which Jagger calls out for Sue. He asks that didn't he tell him that he is going to show him Sig's entire life. As he calls out for Sue, he penetrates his sword onto the ground, and it emits tremendous energy over the place, which gets recognized by Albert as the fog of ice crystals. Albert realizes that with Altered becomes alert and asks himself that will the attack even bind his vision. The fight continues as Albert protects himself with the shield from Jagger attack, and then on receiving another blow from Jagger, he notices Jagger's sword and becomes astonished and recognizes it as signature Jagger's sword. He tries to understand Jagger fighting technique and declares to himself that Jagger is blocking the line of sight and raising alertness through attacks from all directions and calls it as attack from the created square. He praises Jagger by saying that his adapting tactics in a clever way is a good idea, and then the fight intensifies as both land attacks on each other. With one strong slash from Albert, Jagger is thrown back, wounded, and Albert takes a sigh of relief, and Jagger stands there losing blood. Albert realizes that Jagger's fighting style was a method of overcoming insufficient mana levels with a sword, and he calls out Jagger by saying that isn't he slowly running out of mana, and asks him to stop it now, and he gets abruptly denied by the Jagger as he says that he isn't over yet, as he still couldn't show it to him. With that, he holds his ground and swings up his sword to the ground, which creates a huge explosion towards the Albert, which he tries to hold up with his shield, and both continue the fight. Just then, Jagger swings his attack towards Albert, which catches him off guard, and thus Jagger is able to throw away the helmet from Albert's head and send it flying in the air, and throws his sword to the ground. Albert, on the other hand, tries to comprehend the situation of Jagger dropping his sword. He reminds himself that he rather needs to read just his own stance, and just then Jagger's sword emits blue light, and ice emerges out of it, which surprises Albert, and he starts questioning himself. That could it be that all the attacks all of this time from Jagger were to freeze the ground? Coming out of his trance, he quickly backs up from the ice and swings his sword up in the air to defend the Jagger's attack. Just then, Jagger swings his body up in the air and manifests in his brain that this was where he can show him now, as Albert sees Jagger swinging in the air and realizes that what this child was showing was his son, Albert. Could he see his son's face in Jagger? And he murmurs to himself that yes, he was indeed a very clever child. Meanwhile, Jagger swings right up in the air and lands the blow on Albert's face, to which Albert swings his sword and sends Jagger flying back to the ground. The scene shifts towards the stage where all the commanders are in shock, including the human form of Jagger's sword, and people in the arena cheer and scream in joy on Albert's victory. As Albert exhales after the fight, the king raises up from his seat and says to Albert that they won. But it feels like they lost, on which Albert agrees and says that it's true, although it wasn't dark, that's what he meant. Just then, loud running footsteps can be heard, and a servant reaches and bows before the king, saying that there is a big problem, and says that again, there is a murder case. The scene shifts to the city streets where Jagger greets his senior Saxon. Saxon confirms Jagger's arrival, which Jagger affirms, asking if it's here. Saxon says yes, and they both enter the crime scene. Upon entering, Jagger is shocked by the sight before him and says it's too blatant. He bends down to examine the body and says the weapon was a longsword. If that were the case, wouldn't it already be an assassination? Saxon replies that it's strange. However, the body is clean with no visible signs of resistance except for the sword wound, and all events so far are the same. Jagger thinks to himself that being attacked by the criminal without resistance, it was such a big difference in skill that he couldn't even defend himself. He says it's highly likely it was the work of his acquaintance. Saxon questions if it's an acquaintance of the victim and asks if it would be easy to assassinate an aristocrat without a trace in his office. Of course, there may be cases where the assassin is superior, but the probability is low. Jagger agrees with Saxene and asks if perhaps there is anyone he thinks might be a suspect. Saxene says that at first he thought it was Todris. However, Todris also had a victim at the same time, and even the crime tool and traces are the same. It's said that there is an inscription left that reads, "To cut down the warrior of doom." Jagger questions about Condemn, to which Saxon says he thinks they are probably trying to take advantage of the rumors that the warrior of doom is once again condemning the nobles. Hearing this, Jagger confusingly asks who's spreading such false rumors, to which Saxene, with a forced smile as he replays the face of Minerva, asks who Jagger thinks it is. He further thinks that, aside from the story, currently there is a faction among the noble forces that has not yet suffered any victims, and those are renegades, who withdrew their support. The scene shifts to the hallway where Saxon and Jagger arrive at Sir Jamie Alestro's office. Saxon knocks and asks permission to enter. The office door opens and Jamie Alestro asks what the matter is. He then notices Jagger behind Saxon and walks up to him saying, isn't he the warrior of doom and that the battle with Albert was really impressive? Jagger respectfully bows and says Jamie flatters him immensely. Saxon interrupts the two, asking Sir Jamie if they could end the greetings there, upon which Jamie invites them into the office. The three take a seat, and Jamie asks what business they came for. Saxon answers that two aristocrats were assassinated last night, both Pius's close associates and Todris's close associates. Jamie asks what it has to do with him, to which Saxon says that surely Jamie didn't know. While everyone else was dying, Jamie was the only one who survived, and he adds that the renegades like Jamie have withdrawn and betrayed their support. Jamie questions if he's the suspect now, to which Saxon replies coldly, then, is he not? Hearing this, Jamie loses his cool and curses out loud, saying that dead Jerk was just killed. Pius has changed. It means he is no longer the person he used to know. This triggers Saxon's anger, and he retaliates by warning Jamie to keep his mouth shut. That name is not something a traitor would utter. Thus, both bring out their swords and raise them towards each other. Just as they start to come closer to attack, Jagger jumps in the middle and swings his sword upon their swords to stop them, asking both to stop. Jagger asks Saxon if he really didn't mean to kill Jamie, did he? He asks Jamie the same thing and questions if he was just a puppet of Pius in the end. With that, he leaves the office. The scene shifts to Jagger's house where, upon reaching, he announces his arrival and is welcomed by Sway, Minerva, and Kitty, which takes Jagger by surprise. He asks if they were waiting for him, to which Sway replies that, nervously that, it wasn't like that she felt he was coming. Their attention goes towards Sway, who is acting grumpy, so Jagger inquires to Sway what the matter was with her. Sway replies that her sister must have been disappointed that she couldn't be of any help this time, which Sway quickly denies, saying it's not like that. If Jagger doesn't use the queen, that's what happens. Jagger teases Minerva by asking if she was disappointed, which she again denies it. Jagger suggests they all should go out after a long time, which all agree to excitedly and go out. They pass through some small alley filled with rats and beggars, on which Minerva asks why he always comes to that place. Jagger replies proudly that that's where they can see the true nature of the city and asks if they should go.